Welcome, noble listeners. Here we are going to tour the world of Sindbad the Sailor, a legend of courage and destiny. Like, subscribe, and leave your mark in the comments. In the heart of ancient Baghdad, where the Tigris River shimmered beneath the golden sun, lived a young man named Sindbad. He was the son of a wealthy merchant, known for his fine silks and spices. Yet, despite the comfort of his father's home, Sindbad's heart was never at rest. While others found joy in markets and music, Sindbad would climb to the highest rooftops and gaze toward the distant horizon, where the river met the sea. Each evening, as the last call of prayer echoed across the city, Sindbad would watch the sails of great ships drift toward the unknown. He longed to follow them, to feel the salt of the ocean wind, and to see lands whispered about in travelers' tales. His friends mocked him. "Why risk your life, Sindbad?" They laughed. "The sea devours fools and dreamers alike." But Sindbad only smiled. "Perhaps," he said softly, "but it also reveals the world's greatest wonders to those who dare." One day, while walking along the bustling docks, he met an old sailor, his beard white as sea foam, his skin rough like driftwood. The man sat mending a torn net, humming a song of the sea. "You have the eyes of one who hears the ocean's call," the sailor said, without even looking up. Sindbad knelt beside him. "Tell me, old man," he asked eagerly, "what lies beyond the horizon?" The sailor chuckled. "Storms that will test your soul, islands that breathe fire, waters that glitter with treasure and danger alike. But remember this, the sea gives, and the sea takes. It listens to no man's will." Those words burned into Sindbad's heart. That night, under a sky heavy with stars, he made his choice. He would leave behind the comfort of Baghdad and seek his destiny on the waves. He sold his inheritance and purchased a sturdy ship, not the finest, but strong enough to brave the unknown. He hired a small but loyal crew: Hassan, the cheerful cook who feared nothing; Jafar, a skilled navigator with a sharp eye; and Karim, a quiet fisherman who could read the sea like a book. Before dawn, Sindbad stood at the pier, gazing at his ship, her sails white, her bow carved with the shape of a soaring bird. The air was cool and filled with the scent of salt. Behind him lay the life he knew. Before him stretched endless possibility. As the first light of morning broke, Sindbad whispered a prayer. "Oh, merciful creator of land and sea, guide me through the waters of fate. Let me see the wonders you have hidden beyond the horizon." The ship creaked, the ropes tightened, and the crew shouted as the sails caught the wind. Sindbad's first voyage had begun. For several days, the sea was kind. The wind carried them swiftly, and the men sang songs as dolphins leaped beside the ship. Sindbad felt alive as never before. He learned to tie knots, steer the rudder, and read the stars. He felt the pulse of the ocean beneath his feet, wild, free, and full of mystery. But the sea's kindness did not last. On the seventh night, the sky darkened without warning. The wind howled like a beast unleashed, and waves rose higher than city walls. Thunder cracked, and lightning tore across the heavens. "Storm ahead," shouted Jafar, gripping the helm. "Lower the sails," Sindbad ordered, his voice steady despite the terror in his heart. The men scrambled, ropes snapping in their hands. Rain lashed their faces, and the ship groaned as if alive. A monstrous wave struck, nearly capsizing them. Hassan was thrown overboard but caught a rope just in time. Sindbad, soaked and breathless, crawled across the deck to help pull him back. "Hold fast," Sindbad roared. "No man is lost tonight." Hours passed like centuries. The storm raged with fury, but Sindbad refused to surrender. At last, as dawn broke, the wind died. The sea lay calm, vast, endless, and eerily silent. The crew, exhausted but alive, looked to Sindbad with awe. He stood at the bow, eyes fixed on the brightening horizon. The storm had tested him, and he had endured. For the first time, he truly felt it. He belonged to the sea. As the golden sun rose over the waves, Sindbad smiled. "The ocean has spoken," he whispered, "and I have answered." With renewed spirit, he turned to his men. "Raise the sails," he commanded. "Our journey has only just begun." For several days after the storm, the sea remained calm to calm. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, like a sheet of blue glass beneath a blazing sun. The men were weary, their provisions low, and their spirits sinking. Sindbad, however, refused to despair. He spent his days studying the stars and watching the color of the waves, trusting his instincts more than any map. "The sea hides its secrets," he told his crew, "but it also rewards those who endure." Then, one morning, as a gentle mist lifted from the horizon, Hassan shouted from the lookout post, "Land, land ahead." Every man on deck rushed forward, hearts pounding. And there it was, a lush green island rising from the sea. Its trees heavy with fruit, its beaches white as pearls. "By the grace of the Almighty," Jafar cried, "we are saved." Sindbad smiled, his heart lifting. "Drop anchor," he ordered. "Let us rest and gather what we need." The crew rowed ashore in small boats, laughing and singing for the first time in weeks. The island seemed like paradise. Birds of bright colors flew above, and springs of sweet water bubbled from the ground. Hassan built a small fire to roast fish, while others gathered coconuts and fruit. Sindbad, walking near the shore, felt a deep peace. The air was cool, the sand warm beneath his feet. It was as if the sea had granted him a gift after testing his courage. But as the sun climbed higher, a strange tremor passed through the ground. The sand beneath Sindbad's feet shuddered. He frowned. "Did you feel that?" he asked Karim, who was cutting fruit nearby. Before Karim could answer, another tremor came, stronger this time. The trees swayed violently, though no wind blew. Birds screamed and scattered into the sky. Then the ground began to move. "Back to the boats," Sindbad shouted. The crew stared in confusion as cracks split the earth. The island beneath them lifted slowly, massively, and from the waves rose a monstrous shape. The sand and trees slid from its back, revealing a vast, dark, living surface. Hassan dropped the food in terror. "By the heavens, it's alive!" It was no island at all. It was a giant sea creature, its eyes like glowing moons beneath the water. The men screamed as the beast roared, a sound so deep it shook their bones. The waves surged violently as it rose higher, sending boats crashing against each other. Row, for your lives," Sindbad commanded. The sailors paddled desperately, their oars slicing through the churning sea. Behind them, the creature arched its massive back, sending torrents of water into the air. The sky darkened with mist and foam. Sindbad's boat was nearly overturned as a wave crashed against it, but he clung to the edge and shouted, "Hold fast. Do not look back." At last, they reached the ship. The men scrambled aboard, breathless and drenched. The monstrous creature let out one final roar before sinking back into the depths, leaving behind a whirlpool that churned 4 minutes before fading into calm. Silence fell over the ship. The island had vanished. Only the floating debris, broken wood, fruits, and pieces of rope remained. Jafar sank to his knees. It was the back of a creature. The sea hides horrors beyond imagination. Sindbad stood at the bow, staring into the rippling blue where the island had been. His heart raced, but not from fear, from awe. "The ocean," he murmured, "is a world of its own, alive, vast, and merciless. It tests those who dare to know it." Hassan, still trembling, whispered, "We should turn back, master. No treasure is worth this." Sindbad looked toward the horizon, endless, mysterious, and calling to him once again. "No," he said quietly, "we sail on, for if the sea wished to destroy us, it would have done so. It only warns us to be humble." That night, as the crew repaired the damage and the moon rose over the quiet sea, Sindbad sat alone at the deck. The memory of the creature haunted him, its enormous size, its strange mournful eyes. He realized something profound. The sea was not merely water and wind. It was alive, and it watched those who crossed it. Sindbad whispered a prayer of gratitude for their survival. "O Lord of the seas, keep our hearts brave and our hands steady. Let us not be blinded by greed or fear, but guided by wisdom." As the waves gently rocked the ship, passed since the terrifying encounter with the living island. A faint breeze carried the memory lingered like a shadow in every sailor's mind. The journey continued. Ship sailed onward into a region and the ocean has only begun to tell its story. The sky seemed always veiled in mist. The compass spun aimlessly, and the stars at night glowed strange and pale. One morning, as the fog lifted, Karim called from the lookout, "Land ahead, Captain." To the east, Sindbad raised his spyglass. There, beyond a field of jagged rocks, he saw cliffs glimmering faintly under the sun, as though the stone itself shone. "We will approach carefully," he ordered. "This land may hold either fortune or death." The ship anchored near a narrow inlet, and the men rowed ashore. The island was unlike any they had seen, silent, windless, with cliffs rising like towers of glass. The ground was dry and cracked, and not a single bird sang. The air shimmered with heat, though no fire burned. "This place feels cursed," muttered Hassan, glancing around nervously. Sindbad knelt and picked up a small stone from the sand. He held it to the light, and his eyes widened. It wasn't a stone at all. It was a diamond, uncut but dazzling in brilliance. "By the heavens," Jafar whispered, "the ground is filled with them." All around them, scattered in the dust, lay countless diamonds, glittering like stars fallen to earth. The men shouted with joy, falling to their knees to gather them. But Sindbad's joy quickly turned to caution. He remembered the old sailor's warning, "The sea gives, and the sea takes." And as if to prove those words true, a deep hissing sound filled the air. From the shadows of the cliffs emerged serpents, enormous, scaled creatures with eyes like molten gold. Their tongues flickered, tasting the air, and their movements made the very ground tremble. "Back to the boats," Hassan shouted. But there was no escape. The serpents coiled around the cliffs, blocking their path. One lifted its head high, its mouth opening wide enough to swallow a man whole. Sindbad's mind raced. "Do not move," he commanded softly. "They guard this place. We must outwit them, not fight them." They retreated quietly to a small cave, where Sindbad gathered the men to think. He recalled a tale he once heard of merchants who had taken diamonds from such a valley by using meat. They had thrown pieces of meat into the valley, and eagles, mistaking them for prey, had carried the meat and the diamonds stuck to it back to their nests, where the merchants later retrieved them. "Perhaps," Sindbad said, "we can use the same wisdom." The men hesitated, but Sindbad's confidence steadied them. They took what meat remained from their stores and tied it with rope, placing diamonds within. Then, from a high ledge, they tossed the meat into the valley. Moments later, the air filled with the cry of giant eagles swooping down from the clouds. They seized the meat in their talons and flew away, scattering dust and stones. Sindbad waited patiently until the serpents slithered back into their shadows, then signaled the men to follow him along a hidden trail that led up the cliffs. There, among the jagged rocks, they found an eagle's nest, and within it, glimmering among bones and twigs, were diamonds of every color and size. Hassan laughed aloud. "Sindbad, you've outwitted both beasts and fate." "Not fate," Sindbad said with a calm smile. "Only my own fear." They gathered enough gems to fill their pouches, taking care not to burden the boat too heavily. As the sun set, painting the valley in shades of red and gold, the serpents below hissed in fury, unable to reach them. That night, as the ship drifted away from the island, the men celebrated, dreaming of the wealth they now carried. But Sindbad sat alone at the stern, gazing back at the glowing cliffs fading into the horizon. He felt neither pride nor greed, only awe. The diamonds sparkled like the stars above. Yet he knew both were unreachable treasures of creation. He whispered to himself, "Riches mean little if the heart forgets its purpose. The sea does not bless greed, only courage and wisdom." As the moon rose over the calm waters, Sindbad touched a single diamond and smiled. "This," he murmured, "is not gold or glory. It is the memory of a lesson that every wonder hides a trial." And with that, the great ocean Odyssey carried him onward into darker waters, where fate had yet another test waiting. After escaping the Valley of Diamonds, Sindbad's ship sailed for many days through mist and moonlight. The men were rich beyond measure, yet restless. Diamonds glittered in their chests, but unease shimmered in their eyes, for every island they had found so far had tested their courage and their souls. One gray morning, the lookout shouted, "Land ho!" To the north, a dark island. Sindbad lifted his spyglass. The island ahead was unlike any they had seen. Jagged cliffs of black stone rose like broken teeth from the sea, and plumes of smoke drifted upward from somewhere deep within. The air smelled faintly of ash. "This place was scorched by fire," said Karim quietly. Sindbad nodded. "Where there is fire, there may be life or something else." Ignoring the murmurs of fear among his crew, Sindbad ordered the ship toward the shore. They anchored near a narrow beach of obsidian sand. The ground was hot beneath their feet as they climbed inland, through forests of twisted trees and strange glowing stones. Before long, they found ruins, ancient temples half buried in ash, their walls carved with strange figures of men bowing to a one-eyed giant. Inside the largest temple, golden idols lay scattered, each shaped like a man holding a burning torch. Hassan whistled low. "We've stumbled upon the treasure of a forgotten kingdom." "Touch nothing," Sindbad warned. "Gold often lies where danger sleeps." But temptation was stronger than caution. As the crew filled their sacks with gold and gems, a deep, rumbling sound shook the ground. The temple walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. "Out! Everyone out!" Sindbad shouted. They rushed into the open and froze. From behind the cliffs came a colossal shape, taller than the palm trees, its single eye glowing red in the smoke. Its skin was gray and rough like stone, its teeth jagged as knives. In one hand, it held a club the size of a ship's mast. The Cyclops. Jafar gasped, dropping his treasure. The giant sniffed the air and let out a roar that sent birds screaming into the sky. Before the men could run, it reached down and seized two sailors in its massive hand. The sound of bones cracking echoed through the valley. "Run to the shore," Sindbad commanded, though his voice shook. "To the boats now." But the giant moved faster than thought, cutting off their path. With a swipe of its club, it shattered a boulder beside them, blocking their retreat. Then, like a shepherd herding cattle, it forced them toward a great cave in the mountainside. Inside, the air was hot and stifling. The floor was littered with bones, human bones. The Cyclops laughed, a horrible sound like thunder. It chained the sailors near the wall and sat down beside a roaring fire. Sindbad's mind raced. Panic would mean death. Only cleverness could save them. As night fell, the Cyclops feasted on one of the sailors, then fell asleep, its snores echoing like rolling waves. Sindbad looked around. The only light came from the burning coals. He whispered to his men, "We cannot break these chains, but perhaps we can blind the beast." Working silently, they pulled a long iron rod from the fire, heating its tip until it glowed red. Together, Sindbad and two others crept close to the sleeping monster. The air smelled of smoke and blood. "Now, Sindbad," whispered with all their strength. They drove the red-hot iron into the Cyclops' single eye. The giant roared in agony, thrashing wildly, swinging its club blindly. The ground shook as it stumbled against the walls, tearing down stones and boulders. "Run!" Sindbad cried. In the chaos, they broke free of their chains and fled toward the cave entrance. The blinded Cyclops followed, its roars shaking the very earth. As they reached the shore, Sindbad shouted, "Push the boats." They launched the small boats into the water just as the giant emerged from the cave, its hands groping the air. It hurled a boulder that missed them by inches, splashing the sea into towering waves. At last, they reached their ship. The Cyclops stood on the cliffs, roaring helplessly as the wind carried Sindbad and his men away. Breathing hard, Sindbad turned to his weary crew. "You see, my friends," he said, "courage wins nothing without wisdom, and greed blinds faster than fear." They nodded, trembling but alive. Behind them, the black isle vanished into the mist, a dark memory swallowed by the sea dot as night fell. Sindbad stood at the bow, watching the stars appear one by one. The wind whispered through the sails, carrying a strange, almost human sigh, as if the ocean itself mourned for those who had perished in their thirst for gold. Sindbad closed his eyes and murmured, "The sea gives, and the sea takes, but still, I must sail on." And so, the great ocean odyssey continued, toward deeper waters and even greater mysteries waiting beyond the horizon. After the horror of the Black Isle, Sindbad's ship drifted through calmer seas. The men were silent, their faces pale, still haunted by the memory of the Cyclops' roar. Yet the ocean offered no rest for long. The sky darkened one morning into a ghostly gray, and the waves began to churn, as if the sea itself had awakened. Sindbad stood at the bow, scanning the horizon. "A storm is coming," he said quietly, "but not like any we have faced before." The wind howled without warning, spinning their ship like a toy. Black clouds spiraled downward, forming a monstrous whirlpool that glowed faintly with light from below. The crew struggled to steer clear, but the current was too strong. "Brace yourselves," Sindbad shouted. "The sea has chosen our path." The whirlpool pulled them in. The ship spun faster and faster, wood creaked, ropes snapped, men screamed, and then, suddenly, everything went still. Sindbad felt himself falling into darkness. Swallowed by the ocean. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on a smooth stone floor beneath a shimmering blue glow. Around him, shapes moved, graceful, shining forms like people, but their skin glimmered like pearls, and their hair floated like seaweed in the water. Sindbad gasped. He was underwater, yet he could breathe. "Welcome, traveler of the upper world," said a deep, melodic voice. Before him stood a figure clad in coral armor and a crown of shells, the Sea King. His eyes were calm and ancient, like the depths themselves. Sindbad bowed low. "Great Lord of the waters," he said respectfully, "I am Sindbad, a sailor of the surface. I meant no trespass." The Sea King smiled. "You did not trespass. You were chosen. Few men survive the whirlpool of the deep gate. Fewer still are found worthy to enter my realm." He raised his hand, and the chamber brightened. Sindbad saw vast palaces of glass and coral, lit by glowing pearls. Fishes of every color swam through archways. Giant turtles carried carriages made of shells. It was a world of beauty beyond imagination. "You are in the kingdom beneath the waves," said the Sea King. "Here, the sea remembers all things lost above." Sindbad was given robes, woven from sea silk, and feasted on fruits that shimmered like light itself. Days passed. Though time felt strange there, neither day nor night, only an eternal blue glow. The Sea King spoke often with Sindbad, fascinated by tales of the world above, the markets of Baghdad, the golden deserts, the songs of birds. In return, the king told him stories of the deep of forgotten cities, swallowed by storms, and treasures that men would never see again. "Everything that falls into the sea," the king said, "comes to rest here. Gold, ships, even dreams." One day, the Sea King led Sindbad to a hidden hall, filled with statues all made of stone, yet eerily lifelike. "These," said the king, "were sailors who sought to steal the secrets of the sea. The ocean does not forgive greed." Sindbad bowed his head. "I understand, my lord. The sea gives to the humble, but devours the proud." The king smiled faintly. "Then you have learned what most men never do." He extended a hand and placed in Sindbad's palm a pearl as large as a dove's egg, glowing softly. "Take this, Sindbad of the surface. Let it remind you that wonder and wisdom weigh more than gold." Sindbad accepted the gift with gratitude, yet his heart longed for the warmth of the sun, the sound of gulls, and the smell of open air. "My lord," he said gently, "your kingdom is a paradise, but I do not belong here. The sea has shown me wonders, but my destiny lies above." The Sea King regarded him for a long moment. "So it shall be. But remember, sailor, you are now part of the sea's story. Wherever you sail, the ocean will watch over you." He raised his trident, and the water swirled around Sindbad in a spiraling column of light. The next moment, Sindbad awoke on the shore of a quiet island, his ship miraculously repaired, his men sleeping nearby as if nothing had happened. In his hand lay the glowing pearl. Sindbad looked out at the calm waves and whispered, "The sea tests, teaches, and forgives, and I am its student still." He turned to his crew with a smile. "Hoist the sails, my friends. The world above still has lessons to give." And as the ship glided once more into the open ocean, the water shimmered faintly, as if the Sea King himself watched from below, guarding the sailor who had looked upon his hidden realm and lived to tell the tale. The sea stretched endless and calm after Sindbad's miraculous return from the undersea kingdom. The pearl from the Sea King glowed faintly at night, casting a gentle light upon the deck. Sindbad often gazed at it, lost in thought, remembering the king's words, "You are now part of the sea's story." For many weeks they sailed without event, carried by kind winds. Then one morning, the lookout shouted, "Land ahead." Sindbad raised his spyglass and saw a lush, emerald island glimmering on the horizon, waterfalls like silver threads, tall trees swaying gracefully, and strange birds that sparkled in sunlight. "It looks like paradise," murmured the crew. Sindbad, ever cautious, nodded. "We'll drop anchor and rest. But remember, my friends, beauty often hides mystery." The ship anchored in a crescent-shaped bay, and the men went ashore. The air was sweet and filled with music, not from any instrument, but from the wind itself. As the breeze passed through the trees, it produced melodies, soft flutes, deep drums, and distant harps. Sindbad stood still, listening. "This island sings," he whispered. The men wandered deeper inland, enchanted by the sounds. Flowers shimmered like jewels. Fruit trees offered golden pears that tasted of honey. They laughed and ate freely, their fears melting away. But Sindbad felt something unusual. The air was heavy, charged with unseen energy. The songs of the wind seemed almost like voices whispering words he couldn't understand. "Do you hear that?" he asked his first mate. "Aye," the man replied nervously. "It's as if the wind is calling our names." That night, they camped beside a stream. As the moon rose, the wind's song grew louder, no longer peaceful, but haunting. The trees swayed violently, though the air was still. Suddenly, one of the crew screamed. A gust of wind swirled around him, lifting him from the ground. The others tried to grab him, but he vanished into the air, his cry fading into the song. "Back to the ship," Sindbad ordered. But as they ran, the wind turned fierce, circling them like a living thing. Figures appeared in the storm, spirits of air, with transparent wings and glowing eyes. A voice boomed through the storm. "Who dares trespass on the island of the singing winds?" Sindbad stepped forward, clutching the glowing pearl. "I am Sindbad, a sailor and seeker of truth. We meant no harm, great spirit." The largest of the wind spirits, towering like a cyclone with a face of swirling clouds, studied him. "You carry the mark of the Sea King," it said. "Few mortals bear that light. Speak your purpose." Sindbad bowed. "We seek only rest and wisdom from our journey. If we have offended the island, forgive us." The spirit's stormy form calmed, and the air around them softened. "Long ago," it said, "this island was home to the guardians of the four winds. Men once honored the air, as they honored the sea, but greed and war silenced their songs. Now only we remain, singing to keep the balance of nature alive." Sindbad listened with reverence. "The world above has forgotten such harmony," he said quietly. "Perhaps I can carry your song back with me." The spirit nodded. "Then listen, sailor of destiny." It extended an arm, and the wind swirled into Sindbad's ears, a melody not of sound but of understanding. He saw visions, mountains breathing, rivers whispering, skies weeping when men forgot their gratitude. The winds showed him the world's hidden harmony, and how each element lived because of the other. When the vision faded, Sindbad fell to his knees, tears in his eyes. "I see now," he whispered. "To travel the world is to learn its soul." The great spirit smiled, and the other wind beings surrounded him, singing a melody so pure that the night itself seemed to glow. Then, as suddenly as they had come, they vanished into the breeze. The storm cleared, leaving calm moonlight over the island. The missing sailor appeared by the shore, unharmed but trembling. "I dreamed I was flying," he whispered, "and the wind was alive." Sindbad led his men back to the ship. As they sailed away, the island's song faded into the distance, soft, haunting, eternal. He turned to his crew and said, "We have seen the sea's heart and heard the sky's voice. Our journey is not only across the world but through the spirit of it." He placed the Sea King's pearl beside the ship's compass, and for a moment, the wind shifted, guiding them toward their next unknown and his crew had left the island of the singing winds with awe. The ocean carried them through calm days and clear nights, the sky, as if rewarding them for surviving the trials of sea and sky. Sindbad often sat alone by the mast, the glowing pearl, and the memory of the wind spirits whispering within him. But peace on the ocean never lasted long. One morning, the lookout shouted, "Land ahead." The island that appeared was unlike any they had ever seen. Dark mountains rising like teeth from the water, their peaks lost in mist. As they drew closer, the sea turned oddly still, and no birds flew above. Sindbad frowned. "This land feels cursed," he murmured, but curiosity, ever his companion, pushed him onward. They landed on a narrow shore, littered with black sand and shards of crystal. When the sun touched the ground, the sand sparkled, faintly, revealing glimmers of precious stones beneath the surface. "Diamonds," gasped one sailor, kneeling to grab a handful. Indeed, the ground glittered with uncut gems, countless and dazzling. The men shouted with joy, filling their pockets. But Sindbad's eyes lingered on the shadows cast by the cliffs. They seemed to move slightly, even though the light was still. "Be careful," he warned. "No treasure lies unguarded." They ventured inland through a narrow gorge, its walls glittering with diamonds embedded in the rock. But as they walked deeper, the air grew colder, and the light dimmed. Soon, a great valley opened before them, vast and hollow. its floor covered with diamonds as large as fists. Sindbad's breath caught. "The Valley of Diamonds," he whispered, remembering an old sailor's tale. It was said to be a place where gems rained from the mountains, guarded by unseen beasts of shadow. The men spread out, greed overtaking fear. "We will be rich beyond kings," one shouted. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the valley. The ground trembled, and from the dark caves along the cliffs, the shadows moved. At first, Sindbad thought they were tricks of light, but then they rose, forming shapes, giant serpents of smoke, their eyes burning with crimson fire. The men screamed and ran. The creatures slithered soundlessly, surrounding them like living storms. Sindbad drew his sword, though he knew steel would not harm such beings. "To the rocks," he cried, "climb." They scrambled up the steep sides, the diamonds slipping under their feet. One sailor fell, his cries swallowed by the shadows below. Sindbad reached a ledge and pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding. From his pouch, the glowing pearl of the Sea King pulsed brightly, and the shadows recoiled slightly from its light. Sindbad held it high. "By the gift of the ocean, I command you, begone." The shadow serpents hissed, their fiery eyes dimming. The light from the pearl spread, revealing the valley in its true form, not of riches, but of ruin. Bones were scattered among the gems, sailors who had come before, consumed by greed. Sindbad understood. "The treasure is a trap," he said softly, "a test of men's hearts." He turned to his men, his voice steady. "Take only what your hands can hold. Leave what your hearts desire most. The sea gives gifts to the wise, not the greedy." Reluctantly, the sailors obeyed. Each took a few gems, enough for need, not for greed, and together they climbed toward the light. The shadows lingered below, watching but did not follow. When they reached the ridge, the sun broke through the clouds, scattering the darkness. Sindbad looked back one last time. The valley glimmered, beautiful and deadly, a mirror of human desire. As they returned to their ship, the wind rose gently behind them, pushing them away from the cursed land. Sindbad stood at the helm and whispered, "The sea tests our courage, the winds test our faith, and the earth tests our hearts." He opened his hand, and sunlight danced upon a single diamond he had kept, small, clear, and pure. "This," he said, "will remind me that even the brightest treasure casts a shadow." The crew nodded, silent and humbled. The sails filled with wind once more, and their ship glided onward into the golden horizon, toward whatever wonder or danger awaited next. Beneath the waves, unseen, the light of the Sea King's pearl flickered like a heartbeat, as if the ocean itself still watched over Sindbad the sailor, the man who had faced greed and shadow and emerged wiser than before. The morning after. Leaving the Valley of Diamonds, the sea was calm, eerily calm, as if the world itself paused to let Sindbad think. The sailor stood at the bow of his ship, his eyes tracing the horizon where sky and water met. The men were quiet too. They had gold, gems, and stories beyond imagining, yet each carried a solemn wisdom learned from their perilous voyage. Sindbad's glowing pearl from the Sea King rested beside the ship's compass, shining softly with every sunrise and sunset. Days turned into weeks, and still the ocean stretched endless. Then one afternoon, a strange sight appeared ahead, a golden mist, hovering like a dream above the waves. Sindbad frowned. "Stay steady, men. We've seen too much to trust beauty without reason." But as they entered the mist, the sea shimmered beneath them, and an island emerged floating as if held by the clouds themselves. Its trees sparkled with silver leaves, and birds with jewel-bright feathers sang from every branch. The air was perfumed with sweetness and calm. Sindbad felt peace unlike any he had known. "Perhaps," he murmured, "this is where our journey ends." They went ashore, and the island greeted them with fountains of clear water and fruit that glowed faintly like moonlight. The crew rested, laughter returning to their tired faces. But as night fell, Sindbad wandered alone toward the island's center, where he found a great marble archway carved with words in a language not his own. The moment he stepped closer, the pearl in his pouch flared with light, and then a familiar voice spoke, soft, yet vast. "Brave sailor," said the Sea King, appearing in a vision of shimmering water. "You have crossed the ocean's heart, walked among the winds, and faced the greed of men. What do you seek now?" Sindbad bowed deeply. "Only to return home, my lord. I have seen wonders that words cannot contain. My heart longs to rest where it first learned to dream, in Baghdad." The Sea King's image smiled. "Then the sea shall return you. But remember, no voyage truly ends. Every return begins another story." The vision faded, and the air shimmered. Sindbad felt the island tremble slightly, as though it were preparing to vanish. He ran back to the ship, raised the sails. Quickly, as the ship pulled away, the golden island sank slowly into the mist, until it disappeared completely. The men watched in silence, awed and grateful. Then, a great wind arose, warm, steady, guiding. It carried them across vast waters faster than any they had known. The stars above seemed to move with them, and dolphins leaped beside their ship like escorts of fate. At last, one bright morning, the call of seabirds echoed in the distance. A sailor shouted, "Land! Land to the west!" Sindbad lifted his telescope, and his heart leaped. The city of Baghdad, shining in the dawn light, its domes and towers like old friends waiting for his return. When they docked, people gathered in awe at the sight of their ship, its hull scarred by storms, yet gleaming with pearls, diamonds, and strange treasures. Sindbad stepped ashore, kissed the earth, and whispered, "Home." He returned to his house, greeted by servants and friends who thought him long dead. That night, he held a great feast. Poets, travelers, and merchants filled his hall as he told tales of his Odyssey, the island of singing winds, the kingdom beneath the waves, the valley of diamonds, and the kindness of the Sea King. When he finished, the hall was silent. Then, one old man spoke. "Sindbad, you have conquered the seas, and your own heart. What have you learned from all this?" Sindbad smiled gently, that the greatest treasures are not gold or jewels, but the wisdom gained from surviving the storm. The sea teaches patience, the winds teach humility, and the earth teaches gratitude. To live and tell the tale, that is the truest fortune. The guests applauded, raising their cups, but Sindbad's eyes drifted toward the open window, where the moonlight touched the sea beyond the city. The pearl from the Sea King glowed softly on the table beside him, a reminder that though he was home, the ocean still called. He whispered quietly, "Someday, I may sail again, not for riches, but for wonder." And as the waves outside shimmered in silver light, it seemed the sea itself answered in a whisper of its own. "Come when you are ready, Sindbad. The world is vast, and your story is not yet done." End of the Great Ocean, Odyssey of Sindbad, a tale of courage, wisdom, and the endless hunger of the human heart for discovery, reminding us that every journey across the sea begins within the soul itself.